Hey there, I'm Michael Kuss, joined by Russ Lacate. We're two Mets on the mic. Russ, we were talking about this yesterday, and we've talked about it on and off for the last week. How do you talk about the weather in these COVID-19 times? It's so unusual because normally when we're referring to the
It
weather, we're
is.
talking about outside activities and many of those things we do together, and we can't refer to that in relation to the weather conditions.
No, and on the West Coast, we're so spoiled. We're often talking about all these outdoor activities, by late March, by early April, never mind the eastern half of the country that's, somewhat delayed getting into that. But as you and I both know, we're baseball parents and our kids have played for years in minor ball, and that's all, off the books right now. It's you can't even suggest taking a stroll on the seawall without talking about social distancing. You can't talk about spending time on the patio unless you're at home, isolating with your family only. It is really tricky because obviously that's where our brains steer to right away is the weather looks pleasant for the next several days. What are the best ways you could take advantage of it? But you really can't do much other than enjoy the view, I suppose.
And you know what? It's interesting how it's changed. Even in the early days, which were a couple of weeks ago for us, when it really started
Yeah.
getting serious, we were still talking about getting out for hikes and bikes. And now
Yes.
we don't even want to see people out there, definitely not in the backcountry. We don't want
Yep.
people out biking anywhere in the trail system, really, because we're still just too close together. There's only so many locations. And if we're not out doing some of the more obvious things, it pushes too many more people into the backcountry.
No, this is a really good point. And I've been talking about, my outdoor activities of late have been completely confined to working around the yard or taking the dog for a walk. But even then, and I got to salute my neighbors here in Surrey, that everybody's been really good about passing with a wide berth. But you are hyper aware of that. You're walking down the street with your dog. You're looking, a block or so ahead. You're like, oh, I better cross the street here at this point. So it's a completely different way that we're having to train ourselves to think now. And I suspect that we're in this for a while yet.
Yeah, and you know what? We do also have to, you are fortunate enough, I'm fortunate enough that we have our own yard and we have our
Yes.
own space, but there are tens of thousands of people around the lower mainland that live in apartments or basement suites, and they don't have an outside space. So, it's really difficult to get that message across. Enjoy the weather, but where?
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I mean, all you've got sun shining in your window and you're kind of trapped a lot of the time. So yeah, I empathize greatly with everybody who is doing their part and self-isolating and social distancing because it is a huge challenge for many individuals, as you say.
Yeah, it sure is. And I guess at least we do have the sun streaming in, so we can enjoy that. And we will continue to update you right here on the forecast as we move forward.